Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Are you ready to delve into some pretty fascinating Earth science today?
Always ready to dig deep.
Well, great. Because today we're going to be talking about lithospheric dripping,
Yeah.
which I know it sounds a bit like something out of a sci-fi movie, maybe, but it's a real thing, a geological process.
Oh, it's very real. And it's prompting a lot of scientists to kind of rethink what they thought they knew about, how our planet works, how it evolves over these vast timescales.
Right, and it's kind of changing how we look at plate tectonics,
Hmm.
which is, the big picture of how continents move and, mountains form.
Yeah.
So before we get into the nitty gritty, can we just sort of, for those who are hearing this for the first time,
Yeah.
what exactly is lithospheric dripping? I mean, the name itself is pretty evocative,
Yeah,
but
it does conjure up a certain image.
yeah.
Maybe a good way to think about it is, I don't know if you've ever seen those demonstrations of like a pitch drop experiment
Yeah.
where you have this material that seems completely solid, right? Like you could tap on it, it would feel hard. But over many, many years, it slowly drips like a very, very viscous fluid.
Right.
And so that's kind of what we're talking about with lithospheric dripping. Imagine that same kind of slow, almost imperceptible flow happening, but with the Earth's lithosphere. And the lithosphere is that outer, rigid shell of our planet.
Okay, so the whole, like the Earth's crust and the very uppermost part of the mantle.
Exactly, yeah. So it includes the crust and that uppermost part of the mantle. They kind of behave as a single unit.
Okay.
And so what happens is you can have portions of that lithosphere, especially the lower part of the crust, that can heat up and become less viscous, more like, a very thick syrup or honey. And then, because it's denser than the surrounding material, it can start to slowly ooze downward into the mantle, driven by gravity.
Right. Yeah, the scientists at the Ice Age Floods do put it like they said that the lower crust heats up and becomes gooey,
Yeah.
and then, yeah, it slowly oozes downwards like honey or syrup.
Yeah, that's a great way to visualize it. And it's that gooiness that's really key. Because it's not like a solid block just breaking off and falling. It's more of a slow deformation and sinking.
Right, like a very slow motion drip.
Exactly. Yeah, it's over geological timescale, so we're talking millions of years.
Yeah, millions of years for maybe like a single drip to sort of work its way down.
Right.
So this isn't just a theory, right? I mean, scientists are actually seeing evidence of this happening in different parts of the world.
Yeah, it's not just hypothetical anymore. We're actually observing this in action. And there are two really fascinating examples that have been in the news recently. One is beneath Turkey in the central Anatolian Plateau.
Right.
And the other one, which is maybe even more surprising, is right here beneath the American Midwest.
Yeah, that's the one that really kind of caught my eye because you think of the Midwest as being like geologically stable, not much happening.
Right, yeah. You don't think of the Midwest as a hotbed of tectonic activity. But it turns out that even these seemingly stable regions can be undergoing some pretty interesting changes beneath the surface.
Right. And there were some articles that I came across, suggesting that this might be even more widespread than we initially thought. Like there was one in Live Science that said that it could happen wherever mountains form. And then Science Alert mentioned that they found evidence of it under the Andes Mountains, too.
Yeah, it's becoming increasingly clear that this is not just a freak occurrence in a couple of places. It seems to be a more fundamental process that could be happening in many different tectonic settings around the world.
Wow. So it's kind of changing the way we look at how those surface features that we see, mountains and basins and things like that, how those are formed.
Absolutely. And the reason we're starting to understand this better now is because of advances in technology. Like, we have much better seismic imaging techniques now, which are kind of like giving us an X-ray vision into the Earth's interior. And we also have much more precise satellite data that can detect these subtle changes in the Earth's surface elevation. So as our tools get better, we're able to see these things that we couldn't see before.
And as we're kind of getting more attuned to what those signatures of lithospheric dripping look like,
Yeah.
we're starting to find evidence of it in more and more places.
Yeah, exactly. And what's really exciting is that these different locations seem to be showing us different stages or styles of dripping.
Okay.
So we're getting a more complete picture of how this process works and all the different ways it can manifest.
So what we're really trying to do today is to understand this new kind of plate tectonics, right? It's not just about those big horizontal movements of plates that we learned about in school. It's also about this slow downward movement, this dripping that's shaping the Earth's surface.
Yeah.
And we want to see what the implications are, what it means for, how our planet evolves.
Yeah.
So let's start with Turkey. What's going on there? What's the evidence that they're seeing?
So the Central Anatolian Plateau has really become a kind of a textbook example of lithospheric dripping.
Okay.
And there were some really great articles about it in the Ice Age Floods Institute, Science Alert, and the University of Toronto. They all had some good coverage.
Okay.
And what's really interesting is when you look at the surface of this plateau, you see these unusual features, like these crinkles and divots.
Okay.
And in particular, there's this big depression called the Konya Basin
Right, right.
that sits right in the middle of this plateau that's generally being uplifted. So it's kind of counterintuitive. You've got this area that's sinking while everything around it is rising. And
Yeah.
that's one of the clues that something unusual is happening beneath the surface.
So what have the researchers kind of pieced together about what happened? What's the sequence of events?
Well, they think that there was a two-stage process.
Okay.
So first you had this primary drip event, which was happening on a larger scale beneath the whole plateau.
Okay.
And as that denser material in the lower crust detached and sank into the mantle, it caused the whole region to uplift.
Okay, so it's kind of like if you imagine a heavy weight on a trampoline,
Yeah,
and then you suddenly remove that weight, the trampoline is going to spring back up.
exactly, yeah. It's like the land is rebounding after losing some of that dense material beneath it. And according to the Ice Age Floods Institute, they estimated that this uplift has been about 1 kilometer over the past 10 million years.
Wow.
So it's a very slow process, but it's had a huge impact on the landscape.
Okay.
But then what's really interesting is that after this initial uplift, you had the secondary smaller drip that developed specifically beneath the Konya Basin.
Okay.
And this second drip is causing the basin to subside, to sink, and it's happening relatively quickly, too.
Okay.
Science Alert mentioned it was about 20 millimeters per year.
Wow.
So while that might not seem like a lot geologically speaking, it's a pretty significant change, especially when you consider that the rest of the plateau is still uplifting.
Right, so it's like you've got this one area that's sinking while everything around it is rising.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
And it really highlights the complexity of these processes. I mean, you have this initial drip that triggers this broad uplift. And then that same initial drip can also spawn these smaller secondary drips, which can then cause localized subsidence. It's like one geological event can beget another.
Yeah, it's a chain reaction.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the scientists involved in this research, Russell Fiskluek from the University of Toronto, he said that this initial drip could have set the stage for these subsequent daughter events, as he called them.
Interesting. So to really kind of visualize how this might work, scientists have been using these laboratory models, right?
Yeah, they're called analog models.
Yeah.
And they're really cool. Basically, they're trying to recreate the conditions of the Earth's interior in a lab setting.
Okay.
So they'll use materials like PDMS, which is this kind of silicone polymer.
That simulates the more fluid-like mantle. And then they'll use things like modeling clay or ceramic spheres or even silica sand to represent the more rigid crust. And then they'll apply forces to these materials to see how they deform over time.
Right. It's kind of like playing with Plateau, but on a much more sophisticated level.
Exactly. But the results can be really insightful. I mean, the University of Toronto and Science Alert both had articles describing some of these experiments.
Right.
And what they found was that they could actually reproduce these multi-stage dripping events. They could create both the uplift and the localized subsidence, just like what we see in Turkey.
Okay.
And they could do it all without any significant horizontal movement of the crust.
Right. So it's really distinct from those classic plate tectonics where you have those plates colliding and sliding past each other.
Exactly. This is a completely different mechanism that's driving these changes in the Earth's surface.
So these models really kind of lend weight to the idea that what we're seeing in Turkey is actually caused by lithospheric dripping.
Absolutely. And it's not just the models. I mean, there's also some really compelling satellite data that supports this. They've observed this circular feature in the satellite images right over the Konya Basin.
Oh, wow.
And that kind of fits with the idea of a localized downwelling of material, a drip.
Yeah, it's like you're seeing the footprint of that drip on the surface.
Yeah, exactly. And to top it all off, there's also seismic data that shows an anomaly in the upper mantle beneath the Konya Basin, an area of higher density material.
Okay.
And there's also a thickening of the crust in that same region. So it's like all the pieces of the puzzle are fitting together.
Right. So everything's pointing to the fact that this is really happening?
Yeah, it's pretty compelling evidence.
So Turkey gives us this really clear example of these like localized dramatic drips that can cause some pretty significant changes to the landscape.
Yeah.
But then we have North America. where the process seems to be a bit different. It's more subtle, but maybe even more widespread.
Right. And what makes the North American case so intriguing is that it involves a craton.
Okay.
And a craton is basically like an ancient, stable part of a continent.
Right, the really old, solid core.
Yeah, exactly. They've got these really deep roots, and they're generally thought to be very resistant to deformation. But it turns out that even cratons aren't immune to lithospheric dripping.
Right.
And there were some really good articles about this in Scientolite, and there was one called North America is Dripping from Below, which I thought was a great title.
Yeah, catchy.
Yeah. And then there was the actual study that was published in Nature Geoscience.
Right.
And what they found was that beneath the American Midwest, the base of the craton is actually thinning.
Oh, wow.
And it's thinning because of this dripping process.
Okay, so instead of having a defined drip detaching and sinking, it's more like a gradual erosion or dissolution of the bottom of the craton.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And they think that this is happening because of these blobs of molten rock that are forming in the upper mantle and then kind of sinking downwards like droplets. And as they sink, they're dragging down some of that cratonic material with them.
Oh, wow. So it's like it's being pulled apart from below.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the geophysicists who was involved in the study, Thorsten Becker from the University of Texas at Austin, he said that this is really important for understanding how continents evolve over time.
Okay.
Like how they form, how they break apart, how material gets recycled back into the Earth's mantle. It's a really fundamental process.
So even though it's happening very slowly, over millions and billions of years, it's still having a profound impact on the shape of our continents.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what's really fascinating is that they think this dripping beneath North America might be driven by the ancient Farallon tectonic plate.
Yeah, the Farallon plate, it's kind of like a ghost of a plate that used to exist in the Pacific Ocean.
Right.
And it subducted, it went underneath North America millions of years ago.
Okay.
But even though it's gone now, its remnants are still deep down in the mantle, like 600 kilometers down. And they think that those remnants are still influencing the flow patterns in the mantle. And that's what's causing this dripping beneath the Midwest.
So even though this plate is long gone, it's still having an effect on the continent.
Yeah, it's like a ripple effect that's still being felt millions of years later.
Wow.
And the way they were able to see this is by using this really sophisticated technique called full waveform seismic tomography. It's kind of like getting a really detailed 3D X-ray of the Earth's interior.
Wow.
And it allowed them to see these drip-like structures beneath the craton that they wouldn't have been able to see with traditional seismic imaging.
So it's kind of like a whole new level of detail that we're able to see now.
Yeah, exactly.
And while the most obvious thinning is happening under the Midwest, they think that this might actually be affecting the whole North American craton.
Yeah, they think it's a much more widespread process just happening over these incredibly long timescales.
So whether it's these localized drips in Turkey or this more diffuse thinning under North America, lithospheric dripping is clearly a real and significant geological process.
Absolutely. And it's really changing how we think about the evolution of our planet.
And it's kind of humbling to think about how much we still don't know about what's going on beneath our feet.
Yeah, it really is. And it's not just about Earth either. I mean, scientists are now thinking that lithospheric dripping could be happening on other planets as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like Venus and Mars.
Okay.
They don't have plate tectonics in the same way that Earth does, but they still have these variations in their surfaces, these mountains and valleys.
Right.
And so scientists are wondering if lithospheric dripping could be one of the mechanisms that's creating those features.
So it could be a more universal process than we initially thought?
Yeah, exactly. And the Wikipedia entry on lithospheric dripping even mentions some earlier detections of these features, like in the Great Basin of Central Nevada and beneath the southwestern Sierra Nevada in California.
Right.
And those are pretty big features too. Like the one in the Great Basin was estimated to be around 100 kilometers in diameter and extending down 500 kilometers vertically.
Wow.
So it's not just happening on a small scale. It can really have a large-scale impact on the landscape.
Yeah. And I was watching a video by Anton Petrov, and he was talking about how one of the reasons why we didn't realize this was happening for so long is because the main effects are vertical.
Right.
Like we were so focused on those horizontal movements of plates that we kind of overlooked this slow vertical dripping that was happening.
Yeah, it's like we were so used to looking for sideways shoves and collisions that we missed this slow vertical sagging or sinking.
Right. So it's kind of like we were missing a whole dimension of how our planet works.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
So to kind of sum it all up, what we're learning is that the Earth's outer layer, that seemingly solid crust, is actually far more dynamic than we realized.
Yeah.
It's capable of this incredibly slow, viscous flow, and that flow can create these drips that sink down into the mantle, and it can cause all sorts of changes to the surface, like mountains, basins, and even the thinning of continents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a really active area of research. There's still so much we don't know about lithospheric dripping. Like, what are the exact conditions that trigger it? How often does it happen? How does it interact with other geological processes?
Right.
There are so many questions still to be answered.
And that's kind of what makes it so exciting, right? There's so much more to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a whole new frontier in earth science.
So here's a thought for you, our listeners. Could lithospheric dripping be even more widespread and influential than we currently realize?
Mm.
Could it be playing a role in other things that we haven't connected it to yet? Like, what about those volcanoes that pop up in the middle of tectonic plates, far from any plate boundaries?
Yeah.
Could those be related to lithospheric dripping? Or what about earthquakes in unexpected places?
Yeah, those are great questions.
I mean, it really makes you wonder how this new understanding of Earth's deep interior might change our whole view of how our planet works.
It certainly does.
It's a deep dive into a process that we're just beginning to understand.
And it's a reminder that our planet is far more complex and dynamic than we often give it credit for.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a fascinating conversation.
It really has. I always enjoy talking about this stuff. It's so exciting to see how our understanding of the Earth is constantly evolving.
And to all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep. We'll see you next time on the deep dive.
Until then, happy dripping.
Okay, maybe not.
Well, maybe.
See you next time.
Yeah, bye.